welcome back to Girls Stampede through Heavy Cardboard. Today I am joined by Liz Davidson of Beyond Solitaire. And Liz, you do a lot of things. You do blogs, you do video, you do podcasting with a focus on solo games, but not only solo games, right?
That is accurate. Yeah, most of my board game media is focused on solo games, but my podcast definitely is not. And my game list today is actually not at all.
You broke out of the Beyond Solitaire logo.
I did. Yeah, there's a lot of games on there that I played solo, but they have other uses in my life. And, games that I played with other people, games I played with students. One of the games has a solo mode that I still haven't played yet. So
yeah. And we've been doing a lot of talking lately, like back and forth, both through Heavy Cardboard and then through the Dice Tower, which you're also a part of. Do you just cover solo games for the Dice Tower?
I do. I did one single 2-player review. It was for Undaunted Normandy, which I also wanted to put on this list, but it was at 2.21, and I was like, all right, I guess it's too close to midweight.
Yes. So, all right. I did a top 10 list of heavy games with Rahdo, and there were a lot of suggestions in that list where people were like, I want to know what heavy gamers play for light games. And I was like, yeah, we play light games. This is a valid list. So sure. I was always going to have Liz on because when we talk, we just talk. Like we tend to go off on tangents, and yeah, we can talk for a while. So we were definitely planning that. And I was like, this is great because heavy gamers, let's find some light games. But talk about a daunting task, huh?
Yeah, what's so funny is that at first I was like, is this a legit thing for this list? Do heavy gamers like this? And I was like, wait, I'm a heavy gamer. Yes. Anything that I like could go on the list.
That's the thing. And I mean, the kind of, I'll lead into this by saying, obviously, this is our opinions. We do categorize ourselves as heavy gamers, but can we speak for every single heavy gamer in this list? No, there's no way. This is just us as heavy gamers saying, and I'll intro the list now, what are our top 10 light games that we still really like to play, like want to bring out and get to the table versus, okay, we need to kill time, like maybe actually are like, hey, you know what, I want to play this game. So, I'm sure there's a myriad of different reasons that some of these things are on our list. But it was tough. We had to come up with some way of figuring out what's the delimiter? Like, how do we categorize these? What's light? And so we did come up with like 2.0-ish and below, I think.
Yeah, so my highest one on the list goes up to 2.13, and I was like, okay, we're just going to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the highest one we have. I got below 2.1, like nothing. I think my highest is like 2.05. I was like, well, it depends on your round down rules. Like, I think we like to find our little edge cases and exceptions. So yeah, so we're close to 2 and below on these light games lists. But I mean, as always, I was super surprised at how some of these games were listed. And even as comparing them as we go through the list, I have some notes of like, really? This is heavier than that? So all of this is arbitrary. Like, you're basing it on what, right?
Right. The other thing that's interesting about it, too, though, is it's light games that heavy gamers would like. And the other question then is, okay, what is it that attracts heavy gamers to heavy games? Yeah. So I had, like, a defining philosophy for my list, which is, like, I was looking for games that had either a good, strong historical theme or were thinky in some way.
Yeah.
Like, games that I had, like, spent some brain energy on, but were light.
Yeah.
So I thought, like, that might be the thing.
That's a really good way to think about it. Primarily my game group is all really heavy gamers, 18xxers and war gamers, and so that's who I play with. But you'd be surprised what they play. Like, late at night, I think my first game at my first gathering of friends with a table full of what anyone would arguably say was heavy gamers was like Shaky Manor. Like, that's what they wanted. They were like, let's play this new game. It's Shaky Manor. And I'm like, that's what we're playing? Like, we're playing Shaky. And it was a blast. It was so much fun. It's like this dexterity game where you're moving these pieces and you have to get the right pieces in the room, and everybody has their own little shaky manner to do this with. It was so much fun, and like people are screaming like, "Ah, my eyeball," because like there were eyeballs and then you shoot out. And see, it was a blast. Yeah.
I think this goes with that just general truth, though, that war gamers are really just gamers, and heavy gamers are also really just gamers. Like, I feel like it's kind of hard to actually have really strong lines that people could cross, because I think if you like games and it's a good game and you've got a good teacher and the amount of time to play and learn, then any game could really do it for you, just kind of depending on the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. So, are you ready to go through our list?
Let's do it.
All right. So you're up first with your number 10. What do you got?
So my number 10 is this old Reiner Knizia game. It's published by GMT, but it's very much beer and pretzels, and it is called Ivanhoe.
Yes.
And I adore this game. I actually fell in love with it. It was the first hobby board game that I ever loved. I played it in Kirby Whitehead's history class in high school.
Nice.
And so I would finish my work early, and so would my friends, and we would all play Ivanhoe. And it's kind of like, it's got kind of an Uno-esque aspect in that you're playing cards that are different colors, but you're trying to win different colored tournaments. And you have to decide how you're going to press your luck, if you're going to kind of just spin your cards out one by one, or if you're going to like go for a huge play, but somebody might have a status card that messes you up. It's just such a brutal game, and it's the closest to a social deduction game that I like in a lot of ways, because you have to kind of gauge like, okay, is somebody else holding something good?
Right.
I love to teach this to students because they get so into it, and they also get so aggressively upset about it. It's awesome. I've never had
because you can like dehorse somebody, right? Like, so you're jousting, but then you can knock them off the horse. So now you have to do like a different type of combat. You can switch things up.
Yeah.
I like your comparison to Uno, because you can change suits, basically. You're changing how the interaction goes.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is the unhorse card, which is my favorite one to just hold forever. So the highest value cards are these purple cards that are for jousting, because it's the fanciest tournament or whatever. Right. But like, I will wait for some kid to put all of their purple cards on the table, and then if you unhorse someone, it kills all of their purple cards that are in their tableau, and they just look so defeated afterwards.
Exactly. So a little bit of a mean game. There might be a theme there. Yep. Yeah. Ivanhoe is it's excellent. Now, I want to go to your high school, though, because that's amazing. Talk about an incentive to just finish your work up. Be like, what, we get to play board games after? Like, yeah, just like hurry this up. And maybe I wouldn't have gone ahead in my workbooks and got everything done by like the end of the first month of school if they would let me play board games.
Yeah, that's now frowned upon in schools, and we're supposed to teach bell to bell. But honestly, all my best high school memories are like somebody playing cards after we finished our work.
Seriously, and you learn stuff from this. Like, there's a lot of strategy to these games. So even light games like this, like, you have to really plan out what you have, and not knowing what the other person has, and adjust. So. Yeah, good number 10. That is a classic for sure. I see, hi Kabuki Kid, I see Kabuki Kids in chat. So if you guys in chat have any of your own suggestions about light games you love, feel free to like chime in chat and talk about some of the light games you love that maybe still have strategy, or things that you would think of as more like thinky games. Like Liz said, I think that's the way we always kind of call it, like thinky filler type games. Like, and the way I did my list was like, what do we always go back to? A lot of times these games at a heavy game day come up when we're waiting for like another group of people to finish games, but that doesn't make them any less enjoyable. These are ones that, you know, we would happily play at a game day. So that's kind of what I based my list on. But everybody can have their own thoughts on when they would play these games. My first one is actually Silver and Gold.
Ooh, I've not played that.
Oh, so good. So it's Phil Walker Harding. And I like this for multiple reasons. It's a light game, easy to get to the table, has some strategy to it. It's timing strategy. So when are you going to grab the higher tiles, or how are you cards? They're like little maps basically, and you're trying to, you know, go and get the treasure, that type of thing, using shapes that are going to come up from the deck, kind of like Tetris. And I love Tetris, so it was already going to appeal to me from that kind of standpoint. So I really enjoy this one because the timing is with the palm trees. Those come out, and when there's the most palm trees out on your market, that's when you want to kind of score the palm trees. So there's this kind of Tetris-like strategy that you're using, but it's a super easy teach. So getting this to the table is really, really easy for any type of gamer. Heavy gamers that I've played with have no problem with, oh yeah, well, let's play that for a couple rounds until, this other group is ready or what have you, or to start out the game day. And then newer gamers, it's just gets such a cute theme, and they're willing to be like, oh yeah, I think I can play this. And so I like this one because it's kind of there's no experience level to it. There's strategy, but anyone's going to be able to pick it up type game. But yet enough that I'm going to enjoy a play of this. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it.
Makes total sense.
Yeah. And this one was NSV originally. I tend to love their card games. I think they do a good job, not necessarily with theme. They don't care about theme, but the card games themselves are really good, and they tend to get picked up over here most often by Pentosaurus, I think. They tend to always get the NSV games and bring them over. So those tend to be my, when you go to Target and you have like a coupon, spend this amount, get this amount off. That's what I'm always going over and grabbing. It's like, what little card games from Pandasaurus that they've pulled over from NSV are here that I can throw in my cart and give as a gift to somebody, to get them playing games.
Target is a dangerous place.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yep. All right. And let's see. So Kabuki Kid Like Silver and Gold, that one, yeah. I mean, and it's Phil Walker Harding. He does a great job at designing games. I've never played one of his games I didn't enjoy. So let's see. Anybody else? I love stuff from Pyramid Arcade. Yep. The Pyramid games. Oh, those are really, really good, Scott. Pyramid Arcade. Have you ever seen that one? It's a box.
No.
Oh, you would love this. So what Looney Labs did is pyramids is like as old as time. There are these little pyramids that fit into each other, and you can use them as a game component that creates a myriad of games. And I think there's something like over 1,000 different games you can play with these pyramid pieces. So Looney Labs came up with the idea to have people submit their top 40 and vote on them. That's what's in Pyramid Arcade, is the top 40 games you can use these pyramids to play. And then online they have 1,000. So when you buy Pyramid Arcade, you're getting 1,000 games. And some of them, I forget one of it. It's Shobu. It's basically rock, paper, scissors, but with pyramids, and it's the best rock, paper, scissors I've ever played. It's so good. I remember playing that, Kabuki Kid, I played that at PAX East a couple years ago in a demo, and every single one of us in the demo bought the game. Afterwards, ooh,
that's good.
We had such a good time. We were we'll just take a group pledge. Give us all the game. This was fantastic. So that's a really good one. I'm sure that's probably rated maybe around this level. I didn't check that one out. It didn't come up in my search. I went through all 50 pages of BGG games rated 2 and below. So I did not see Pyramid Arcade. Man. It must be over 2.
I used a different method. I was like, okay, what games have I just enjoyed? And then I tried to think of things that I felt comfortable teaching to other people, and then I looked up their weights. Yes.
That's a lot easier. I tend to I wanted the knowledge. I was like, what are? And unfortunately, a lot of stuff came up that just isn't rated. So I'd see it, and I'm like, that's under 2? Yes. Oh, no, that's not under 2. There's no way. But they weren't rated, so they were coming up in my search. So, yeah. Some of them got me excited for no reason. It's like, no, I can't use that. Let's see, we got Cockroach Poker 2. That's a good one. Biblios. Yeah. All right. Are you ready for your number 9?
Yeah, absolutely. So my number 9, this game now gets a lot of hate, but let's get real. Everybody has played this and loved it at some point in their gaming career. It's Splendor. I adore Splendor. I'll play Splendor anytime. I play the app all the time. I love to play it with students. I love to play it with people who don't game. It's so easy to teach because it's like, okay, on your turn, you have 3 options.
Yep.
Like it makes teaching a game a lot easier. But then it's like a potato chip game. So if the person kind of caught on during game 1, they're gonna want to play game 2,
Yes.
game 3. I adore Splendor.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't encountered this game, go do that. It's like a little engine builder where you're a jewel miner, and you have increasingly powerful cards that let you buy more expensive gems and get prestige points. It's simple.
Yes.
But it's satisfying.
I mean, a game has to be good that everyone wants to be the Splendor killer, right?
Yeah.
Like, how many games come out and they're like, oh, is it the Splendor killer? Oh, is it the Splendor killer? I mean, that's the game you want, is one that everything else tries to top constantly, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm trying to think some of the Splendor.
Well, like they said, Century Spice Road was
Yes.
the Splendor killer. I didn't really feel that way. I mean, it's
No.
fine, it's fun, but nothing beats that pure simplicity.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of another one you have on your list. So I'm preventing myself from commenting on one that this reminds me of because it is on your list later on. But yeah, Splendor's definitely, and it's just easy to teach to anybody. This is not a high rules overhead game, simple to get to the table. So yeah. Yeah, I don't really, and Fel talks about, like, I don't get the hate. I don't know that people hate it as much as they just, maybe they like it so much they want that next level. Like, what's the current version? Or, like, how do we improve upon this? But as you said, Liz, like, it's perfect in its simplicity. There's not really a need for it to have more.
Right. Well, the hate I usually hear is something more like, oh, it's not that great, or like, oh, it's played out, I'm tired of playing this. Like, how do you get tired of this? Like, but okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you do, find something else. That's fine. You know, move on. There's plenty of games that I've loved, you know, my first 3 to 5 plays of, and then said, all right, I'm kind of over this. I see the combinations, you know, it's done. Doesn't mean it was a terrible game. I enjoyed those plays of it, you know. So I have a friend who will get games like that and then pass them on, you know, because he's like, I enjoyed my time. Now somebody else can enjoy it. We'll just keep it going. So, you know, if that happens, you know, create a Splendor train. Just keep pass it to somebody else. It'll be fine. But this one is probably good with your kids too in school, right? Because this is easy to teach, mining gems.
My favorite student I ever taught this to, Miguel, years ago, it was my first job. He had such an attitude with me. I had to call his mom, and of course I had to like resurrect my ancient Spanish, and he was like, you shouldn't bother to call my mom, she doesn't understand you. And I was like, I'm pretty sure she understands su hijo no trabaja en mi clase. And like we had a little spat, and then I taught him how to play Splendor, and he morphed into this amazing student who wanted to be in my class because he wanted to play Splendor.
Yeah. See, as bribery, games as bribery. I love this.
I mean, whatever works. I am not above pretty much any bribery. I mean, if it gets the job done.
Yes. I think it was, there was that TV show, Parenthood, and there was like this one scene where the new parents went to the older parents and they're like, how do you do it? How do you, and she looked at him and she's like, bribery. Like, it's just, that's it. Find out what they want and bribe them. Like, that's how you get them to behave. End of story. Like, and she had like this huge jar of jelly beans and she's like, why do you think that's sitting on the counter? Like, they like jelly beans? Bribe them.
Yeah. I mean, I have no pride on that one.
I mean, who gets up in the morning for nothing, right? We all are very easily bribed by things. So, might as well. Use the human condition. It's good.
Exactly. I can bribe myself.
That's what I'm saying. I do it to me. Who among us doesn't say, like, okay, if I get this work done, then I can play Xbox for 2 hours.
Oh, yeah.
We all do it. We might as well just use that on other people, too. It's totally, totally workable. All right, so my number 9, it's not a big surprise, probably to a lot of people, The Mind.
That's such a fun game.
It's the experience for me on this one. And I know there are people who are going to be like, that's not a game. It's not. Listen, for the number of copies that they've sold of this worldwide, I wish I'd created it. Like, if you want to go with it's not a game, that's fine. They're going to laugh all the way to the bank because this thing has sold tremendously. It's done quite well. So well, I mean, I think I've probably bought 20 copies myself, both to give away and then the cards are pretty good, but when you're the world's leader in plays at like almost 400 plays of the game, those cards start to fall apart. So I've gone through multiple copies of this at this point, and it's always a great experience. At any player count, it adjusts super well. And it's just fun to keep going. It's one of those games where you finish and you want to play again. It's like, all right, we messed that up, but if we try again, we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this, and you keep going at it. And I remember, so the designer of the game, Wolfgang Warsch, said to me, he's like, no, you don't win the game unless you actually go to your player count level in dark mode. You have to play it, visibly where you show the cards, and then you have to play it dark to that same level, and then you win. By that, I've won like twice. So in all those plays, like my percentage. If you're going with not counting dark as requiring it, I'm probably about a 10% win rate. So this is a tricky game to do well at. Mind you, I play with all different people. It's not the same people. And I do think if you play with the same person all the time, you start to get a rapport and potentially do that counting that people, that's where they think it nullifies it as a game. But, still, every experience is good. And Wolfgang said the reason for that is if he made it easy to win, then it becomes a game where people might be like, oh, we need something better than this. What's the next level, right? And there is the mind extreme, though I don't think anybody was clamoring for something harder than the mind, no. But he still came up with it anyway, just in case. So it is one of those games that gets you to do repeat plays. And I mean, I would travel with it just in my pocket. And the reason I've played it so many times is people would come up to me at cons and be like, you got the mind? Let's play the mind. So, there's definitely a draw to it. And Kabuki Kid mentions Wavelength, which is another party-like game, but creates this amazing experience when you're playing it, where it's almost this kind of secret in that, I know that this means this, and you'll get the reference, and kind of like charades, like if you have
mean like
that.
Cheating? No, kidding.
A little bit, right? You could say that Taboo, Wavelength, all of those have some ins that potentially could be seen as like nullifying the like game or gaming the game, right? But is it?
For it. I mean, if you're not explicitly giving it all away and you still have to learn how to read the other person and guess and kind of practice at it, I think that that's fine, actually. So,
I mean, it creates that group dynamic. And the thing is, why are you playing the games? Are you playing them for this level of purity in board gaming, or are you playing it for that experience with friends and family that you're going to remember and come back to and want to keep recreating? Most people, it's the latter. And that's where these games really do shine. So.
Yeah. Also, I never worry about playing a game perfectly, as my YouTube viewers can attest. I'm sorry, but nobody plays games perfectly. There's no game police that are going to come knock on your door if you don't do it.
Oh, there are game police, but they're called games rules lawyers. But
they don't come to my house.
They don't come to your house. They probably don't know where you live. You're not going to get subpoenaed, so you'll be fine. But they do exist.
It's good.
Yeah.
Period.
All right. So you're number 8.
My number 8. It's a 2-player game. It is Jaipur, and I love this game.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually lent my copy to a friend, and I need it back because it's the one with the panda cards and not updated art. It's that one that you're showing on screen right now. I like that one.
Yes.
And I adore it because it's the right blend of kind of pushing your luck and hoping something's going to come out of the deck, and timing skill and trying to keep the rhythm of the game in your favor.
Yeah.
I'm also particularly fond of Jaipur because one of my favorite students who still texts me loves Jaipur. And she used to come see me at lunch and after school. Aww. And she'd say, all right, Dr. D, I want to play our game. And I knew exactly what that meant. It's always Jaipur. And I would beat her every time. And then one of the last days of her senior year before she graduated, she beat me. And I was like, okay, we'll just call it at that. We'll let you... And I actually sent her a copy of it to where she went to college so that she would like have something to play with other people.
That is amazing. Yeah, my kids love Jaipur. And they'll gang up on me because it is 2-player, so they'll play against me. And yeah, so it's like team on their side against mom. Let's see what we can do. And it's adorable because they have this whole strategy and they're talking to each other. All right, we're going to do this. All right, don't let her get that. Like, we know she's going for those, so do the thing. And it's absolutely fantastic. And this is the one that I was kind of thinking of when you were talking about Splendor, because it has those really good chips, right? So it's kind of a clunky feel. When you're doing it. And to me, it has a similar feel to what you're doing with Splendor as you're building up and, gem mining and Jaipur spices, right? So you're going with that. But it's hard for me, Jaipur, because of 2-player. I don't often play 2-player. It's usually a bigger group, even just when I'm with my kids. It's, I need a 5-player game. So like 2 doesn't tend to work. But this is a fabulous game. So well done.
Yeah, I love to have 2-player games on hand. So, I mean, obviously I'm not playing any board games with students right now for very obvious reasons. But yes. I really like to get some 2-player games in the rotation in my classroom because it lets you get an excuse to get to know a student one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, do you want to play this game? Everyone's busy, and like if they're bored enough, they'll be lured in, and then before you know it, you have like a little student friend who plays games with you. But also, they get really, it's a bonding thing too.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to have that as a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I have a number of games that sit in like the console of my truck. And that's kind of the idea is, if I just have one of the kids with me and we're waiting for food to be delivered. And that's a thing we do all the time. And I get a lot of comments from, this is obviously last year, before things happened in 2020. But we would go to restaurants and, otherwise the kids are like jumping up. They're trying to get into, and I can't bother people around me. That's like a thing I have. I have to make sure everything, no one's bothered. So going to a restaurant with 4 kids, I needed to bring something that would entertain them. And Jaipur was a great one to bring, or Uno, or Sleeping Queens is one of their favorites. And we would just sit and play, and they would wait for their food. In fact, the food would come and they'd be like, aw, like, wait, games are over. We have to eat now. So yeah, but Jaipur is a great one. Nice small box, easy, portable, great camping game too.
Yeah.
Because it's got those chips, right? It's not gonna, cards too, but I've played it at the beach.
I mean, the chips are cardboard, but they're well enough made that, not too worried about it.
No, it lasts. Yeah. Detroit did the artwork for the new printing. I think I have the old printing as well. I've had it too long for it to be the new, so probably have the old one. That's right, it has the deadpan. Why would they not want that in the new one? I have no idea. Why would we not leave that?
I mean, it's just an Easter egg for you to enjoy.
It is. That's it. We like our Easter eggs. All right, so my number 8, again, not a surprise, is Shobu.
Ooh, I've never played it.
So this is a 2-player game. And it was interesting where you don't know my list yet. I know your list. So it was interesting where we overlapped. And in this case, this is another 2-player game. So you had a 2-player game for your 8, and I do as well. Shobu it's so simple. Basically, you have an active move and a passive move on your turn. So one player is the white stones, one player is the black stones. You have to move one of your stones up to 2 spaces, either orthogonally or vertically. So you can go either direction. And you have to move it on your player boards, what's in front of you, which you're going to have a dark board and a light board. Move one of those, and it can't touch any other stone. 1 or 2 spots. Then you mirror move. And that one is your active. And that can be across on the 2 boards that are in front of your opponent, but it has to be on the opposite color board. So these seem like simple rules, like, okay, it's just move a stone, copy that movement. The whole point being you're going to knock off your opponent's colored stones from all of one board. But you're going to get to a point, if you don't plan really carefully, where you can't move a stone in the direction you need the other stone to mirror move. And then you're like, oh no, I can't defend myself, or I can't attack you because I don't have this set up. And you kind of have to maybe readjust and move things. So that simple rule of it being that you have to start on your boards on your side, and then you have to mirror on the opposite color board, becomes really tricky. And there's a lot of strategy to both attacking and defending as you're playing this game. And it's one of those games, again, where you finish it and you're like, oh, let's try that again. I got plans. Like,
that sounds wild. Onitama was on my short list that didn't make it onto this list, but it's giving me that kind of vibe.
Yes, and Onitama was in like my full list. I had it up there, and I was like, no, and it did end up getting pulled. But yeah, definitely a feel like that to it.
So honorable mention, everyone, Onitama.
Onitama definitely gets an honorable mention. But there were tons. There were a lot that I really, again, for my side, I came down to, are these ones we pull out? Because everybody in my game group has these. Are we pulling that game out and saying, let's get this to the table? And that's not one, maybe just because it's one that we don't think of. But yeah, that's not one that comes out. Shobu stays out. For me, it's so beautiful. It's something to keep out on a side table because it's wood and stones and this rope that separates your player boards, and it's just pretty. And obviously something you could play at the beach. Nothing can blow away. Great picnic game, but it is 2-player. So, but my kids love it. They'll play against me and then play against each other, and they love this game. So. Might be awesome. Another 2-player game for your classroom to bring in. It
might.
Yeah. All right. Your number 7.
So my number 7, it's a trick taker. I actually love trick taking games, and frankly, if we were all just sitting around a table, I'd play Hearts endlessly and not even worry. But my number 7 is The Crew. Yes. I love The Crew. I am down to play The Crew anytime. It is so fun. And again, it's one of those things where you can kind of math it out, but there's also that human element that makes it really hard to win.
Yeah.
Plus the luck of the draw and, who has what goals and what cards in hand. And, The Crew, for those of you who don't know, is a cooperative trick-taking game where the goal isn't to get more tricks than everybody else. It's to make sure that certain players end up with certain cards over the course of playing cards and taking tricks. And it is just so interesting, and people fight about it, and people get confused, and somebody messes up, everyone's like, no! And, just the drama is so high, and it's just a simple game. Like, if you can play hearts, if you can play spades, you can play The Crew. And I think that is really delightful. And again, I was serious. Like, Hearts is one of the games that I learned how to play as a kid. My parents and brother and I have played it I don't know how many times, and I'd still play it. So any trick taker is generally of interest, but The Crew is really something special because that cooperative element with the goals.
It really is, and I love trick-taking games, but it's a unique genre, and it can be hard to teach to new players. Like Tishu is just a fabulous game, obviously 4-player only, so that's a little tricky to get to the table, but it's also hard to teach. So I love The Crew for its ability to teach people the game, and that trick taking. And the fact that it ramps up and you have these 50 different missions in a cooperative level, you can start with those first few missions to kind of get everybody on the same page of how this game is played. So not a surprise, but this is also my number 7.
Really?
Yes.
Yes. Hey, we flipped the mind before we started this list.
Seriously, I know we would win. We're gonna try the mind. Actually, I'm sure we would win together. So, and it was 7 before I saw your list. We were setting up the graphics for this, and I was like, "How did that happen?" Like, it wasn't. It was a little bit arbitrary that it was even my 7. I just was like, "Yeah, I guess this is my order." And I happened to end up being 7, just like yours. So I promise, no stacked deck. That just happened automatically. But for me, it's because there's not an experience differential for this one. Yet trick taking can be a tricky thing to teach non-gamers, and yet in this case I don't feel like it is, because you're learning together, you can get up to speed together, and then you can jump into those later missions, and some of those later missions just throw in really fun elements. I like when the captain has to determine who's sick, right? Like they're like, who's well enough, right? And you have to decide, and you're like, I'm not feeling so good. Right? And you have to kind of give that information. That to me brings in a little bit of the mind element of, information sharing. So
yeah. Well, the crew does give you some communication ability, though. Like, you can do things like indicate, you can show one card and say, this is my highest, this is my lowest, this is my only. And it's something that, you're allowed to communicate in a limited way. Yeah. So I think that's good.
And have you played Stick'em yet?
No, I've not.
Okay.
Remember, most of my games are solo. We're going in much more solo-ish territory as we go.
It's true, and that one's Stick'em is minimum 3-player. So Luke was saying he was trying to decide between Stick'em and this for family game present this year, and I think it really depends, Luke, on how you're going to use the game. Yeah, and Fel mentioned, and this is where I was going to go with it. The Stick'em is very cruel. Like it's very competitive, and you're really kind of sticking other players with stuff. The crew is co-op. So family game, when you say that, it depends on your family. For family game, what I think of is probably the crew, because you can play at, greater player counts, or more diverse player counts. And you're teaching, so for kids. But then I tend to be I don't mind take that at all, and neither do my kids. So Stick'em wouldn't be a problem for them either. So it depends on the size of your family. Are you always going to get 3 players? And depends on if you want to teach them and ramp them up, because that's going to be the crew. You can move all the way up to those really tricky ones where you first read your mission and you're like, I'm sure you've read into this. Like some of them I read and I'm like, what? How are we going to do that? This seems really hard. Or sometimes you get the way the cards come out, you're like, this isn't, I can't. We're not going to be able to do this. So, yeah. So Luke says, my family expresses love by swearing at each other. Then it's a crapshoot. You pick. Do you want them mad at the game or mad at each other? Your choice. Because the game will beat you down in the crew. And you'll just have to try again. So, yeah.
Right.
Not sure that the Stick'em does sound perfect, Fel. That might be for you, Luke. All right, so that's both of our number 7. So we're on to your number 6.
Yeah, we're on my number 6. So, okay, this is a game that has a solo mode that I have not played yet. I've only ever played it with a friend. But my number 6 is Blitzkrieg. It is World War II in 20 minutes, and it's a light game that still has that. I like it as a sort of come over, play a war game kind of game, because
intro war game.
Fast and not bad this is.
Yes.
No, Blitzkrieg is a lot of fun. It's basically it's like a chit drawing game where you have this bag and you're drawing out forces, and you're trying to figure out which theater of World War II to deploy them in, but you don't know what the other person has pulled or where they might put things. And so you're kind of fighting over this space, knowing what you have, not knowing what the other person has, trying to be kind of mysterious about it, but also aggressive enough to win. And it's just fun. It's fast, a 20-minute game that you had a good time with. You just play it again. Yeah. And I think that is ideal, personally, for, a light game that still has that kind of war vibe. It's strategic. You have to think of what you're going to do. It's just fun.
I have not played Blitzkrieg, but reading about it after seeing your list, I was super interested in it, because it doesn't use die rolls or anything, right? Like is it a little bit where it's like, I think that you'll do this, so I will do this to try to prevent that. So
and it's also how much energy do I want to put in this area? Do I really want to dominate this one place, or do I want to try to spread out so I can maybe get more than one? Yeah. You have to choose how hard you want to go in on stuff.
Right. Yeah, it sounds super interesting. Now I want to play it. I'll have to get a copy of this.
Do it.
Yeah. You'll introduce me. And I liked how it did introduce itself in the description as this entry to wargaming or historical simulations. If you're Volko, he doesn't like wargaming. Can't call it that. It's historical simulation.
I do what I want.
I know. It's a war game. Don't worry about it. So Blitzkrieg, you're number 6. So my number 6, I have to pronounce this right or people will get mad at me. Medici.
Is that the emphasis that you put on it?
Yes, you're supposed to call it Medici. If you don't call it Medici, then you're doing it wrong, apparently, and you might get called out on it. So so many people call it Medici. So, but Medici is apparently how you pronounce it. Yes.
I always thought it was Medici, the Medici family.
Yes, you call it what you want. It's still a great game, and this one is actually on my list because where I go to play really heavy games, this is often hitting the table in between as we're waiting, and it's different every time. And there's press your luck in this game because you're building your ship and you're deciding what you're going to take, and maybe you push how much you're going to put on this ship and hope that you get it when it's your turn, because it goes around and each player gets a chance to kind of put their ship out. Or nobody takes it, which is really pushing your luck because too many cards go out and somebody could get no ship, right? And no points that round. So careful planning, not always my forte. If you give me a button to push my luck, I'm going to do it. And in this game, multiple times, there was one time I played it down in Dice Tower Land, down in Florida at Cool Stuff. I was gaming at one of the stores there, and twice in a row we kept playing this, and twice in a row I pushed my luck on a ship that I wasn't going to be able to take because I already had, I think it's 5 cards is your limit in your ship, and I had like 2, and I pushed it over the limit for me and sent it around, and the gold card came out. And I was like, I can't even take it now. I've destroyed myself twice, like quick succession. And I'm like, you'd think I would have learned the time before this, or you'd think that maybe it wouldn't have come out twice. Like, yeah.
But it's just too fun to do it the other way.
It was worth it. It's a good story. But yeah, I kill myself in Medici a lot. And you can overthink this game and absolutely destroy yourself. So it's a lot of fun.
Hey, so Nathaniel James is asking us a question about Kirby Whitehead. Yes, Kirby Whitehead at Reagan. I actually interviewed him for my podcast. I was his student in 2002, 2003, and 2004.
Wow. That's insane. So wait, so Nathaniel knows Kirby and you think that's awesome.
Yeah, I might be talking to a fellow Reagan alum in here, or just somebody who's from Texas. So yeah, I'm from San Antonio, and back in the day, Kirby was teaching us Axis and Allies, but now he gets kids playing Here I Stand and stuff like that in his Euro history classes. He's really like expanded his.
Are you serious? That's amazing. Why was this not my teacher? That's incredible.
Yeah, this is the guy who gave me Ivanhoe as a thing to do. Like, there's a reason that I grew up this way.
But Here I Stand now?
Yeah.
Wow. That's insane. Is he still teaching? He's still teaching now? Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive. Yeah, ISA High School. Wow. That is legit amazing. What an incredible teacher. Jealous. I am super jealous. Is he in any way the reason you became a teacher?
I would say probably not. I became a teacher mostly from, it's partially circumstance. I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher at all until I taught, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I had my very own Greek class. I thought I wanted to be a professor and do like the really hardcore research path.
Yeah.
And then I had this Greek class to myself, and I was a horrible teacher at first, and I had to like learn how to do it. And once I hit my stride, I was like, oh wait, I really like this. And then I kind of missed teaching during my dissertation year, and I was like, oh, there's like a tutoring thing. I'll get some volunteer hours and tutor these kids who need to work on their reading. And I really liked the kids, and I was like, huh. And then I changed careers.
That is incredible. I mean, I feel like you were always meant to do this. You really seem like a great teacher, and like your kids just have fun with you, and and have a blast. So
it is a hard one thing. I'm actually not a very patient person. Like, I never thought that I liked kids, and then I just kind of grew into the person who would. I don't know.
I didn't think I would like
change.
kids. Right, right. Well, I've heard people say, like, their parents will say, like, my kids, and I don't like other kids. I used to be afraid of teenagers. Like, couldn't talk to, like, I would see them on the street and I'd be like, oh, like, stay away from teenagers. I don't know whether it was high school years or what have you, but now I'm totally having a teenager. I'm like, oh, you're fine. It's fine.
Teenagers are really fun, in my opinion. Like, sometimes it can be a little surly, but like they're becoming adults, and it's what makes them so interesting. Like, they're starting to have real opinions about stuff that matters, and they need to both be themselves and get a little bit of guidance from you. And it's like the perfect amount of guidance that I want to give, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I feel like, so when my kids were little, there's like this phase of toddlerdom that they go through where they're a mini teenager, and it almost gives you a preview of how they're going to be as a teen.
Oh, no.
And my now 13-year-old, when she was little, they're all vegan, and she went militant vegan. Like, just so people would be drinking milk, and she'd have to explain to them how it was processed and why it was bad, and and in great detail about antibiotics and rape racks, and like it was, and I'd be like, no, we don't have to go into that right now.
You know what though? Like, I would have let her. I mean, I wouldn't have changed my behavior, but I would have let her talk.
Remember how I told you I don't like anyone around me to be upset. So this for me was like, oh, honey, like probably not the time to explain to them, because they'd be like, oh, it's too bad you can't have any of the ice cream. And she's like, it's too bad you're eating it. And she'd go into, and I'm like, ouch, ouch. So a little bit uncomfortable. But now I can't.
Yeah. You can draw all the conclusions you need to about my dietary habits from my state of origin.
Yes. This is fine. Yeah. Oh, birthday parties were fun with her during that time.
Yeah, especially the sadness for dessert. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm sure it was actually
great. Oh, she would just go off. I was like, no. And I'd even tell her before we went, okay, so can we not discuss this? Just let them have their ice cream. It's okay. Other people can eat what they want. And she's fine now. She's like, yeah, I'll eat what you want. I'll do this. But yeah, but the thing she's militant about now is anime and manga. And if you confuse what anime and manga are, or you pronounce it manga and not manga, then she's going to go off and explain to you.
Oh, God, Nathaniel's making me nostalgic there. Bill Miller. Oh,
barbecue? Bill Miller's barbecue?
Yeah. It's like this, it's like fast food barbecue, but it's like a step above normal fast food. And they have really good tea, like these buckets of tea that they sell. Of tea.
Do you get a bucket?
Heck yeah. Think like a giant trick-or-treat bucket that's clear and full of tea. And like,
my God. Yeah. And the problem, I've skipped food today. I've not eaten yet, so my stomach's going to start, you're going to start hearing it on camera, because I'm like, what?
For my primary food groups are like meat and Mexican food. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I can understand this. That's, oh man, bucket of tea. I can imagine Edward just be like, all right, I got my bucket of tea. Texas tea bucket. Wow. And it's hilarious to me that you knew each other in Texas, because, Texas being the smallest state, clearly you all know each other.
We don't know each other. We just are from the same part of, like, I know his school, and
I'm still saying, out of all the schools in all the states. Right? But I guess with a teacher like that, it's possible that he instilled some gaming prowess in his students too. So,
yeah, he's also a big Model UN guy. So, like, one of the things that Kirby does that's interesting is he has like Model UN tournaments where they'll like use something like Cuba Libre or like another coin game or a war game of some kind as like a way to process what's happening in the tournament. And so a lot of students around San Antonio who do Model UN, which I'm assuming Nathaniel has done, will be aware of Kirby. And his wife is named Yoshi.
Yoshi?
So, yes. So Kirby and Yoshi are married.
That's incredible. That's really, really awesome. Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. Kirby and Yoshi are married. That's really, really good. Whew. All right, so we made it to the halfway point. We at number 5. So you're number 5.
Yes, so my number 5. So this is one of the ones that I cheated a little. It's 2.07, so I didn't think it was cheating that much.
Just over the line. Yeah, that's fine. Just gonna round down.
It's a solo game. It's Black Sonata. I think Black Sonata is delightful. I really like how fun it is to try to deduce where the Dark Lady is. So in Black Sonata, you are looking for the Dark Lady, a mysterious woman from the sonnets of Shakespeare, and she goes around London, and you're supposed to catch her enough times to get enough clues about her, and then use what you find out about her to deduce who she must be.
Right.
And this game is so fun, and also the fact that somebody invented a solo hidden movement game is just the best to me. And I love it. I think it's so much fun. And if you want to just kind of do something that's fast by yourself but thoughtful, then Black Sonata is lovely. And Kabuki Kid mentioned that she's looking forward to the expansion.
Yes.
As she should be. It's very good. I liked a lot of the little mini expansions in there.
Nice. Yeah. This is super interesting. The fact that it is a solo, and the theme as well is so interesting to me. Like this whole idea of this Black lady that, tortured Shakespeare into writing all these things because she was so, terrible to him and held him in this anguish, right? So it's
an anguish of his own making.
The
Dark Lady is the boss, and he just couldn't have her. That's my theory.
Well, there is that theory. Then there's the theory that she, it was requited and then it wasn't, and then she took off with the young gentleman as well that he was interested in, and there was this whole, it just ruined him. So a lot of...
You know what? Awesome ladies got to do what awesome ladies got to do.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah.
So what I liked about this game as a choice for a light games or heavy gamers list is I liked it for the theme, because I think historical themes tend to attract heavy gamers.
Yeah.
And I liked it because it is thought-provoking without actually being a heavy game.
Right.
So that's why I thought it was a good pick.
It truly is. I hadn't thought about this game in years until I saw it on your list, and I was like, oh, that's right. And that is exactly what drew me into it originally. I don't tend to play solo games, just a handful of them have I played, and the theme was what brought me into it, because I was an English major, and this is just right up my alley. So I was like, yeah, this is a really great game. Great one for people to discover, especially now if you're looking to do some solo gaming. Yeah, but even if you're not a solo gamer, if you have something where sometimes you have a night where you just want to sit down and kind of do a puzzle, this to me is more puzzly. What do you think, Liz? I feel like even if you're not primarily a solo gamer, you could still really enjoy the puzzle that this offers.
Yeah, if you ever enjoyed logic puzzles as a kid, I think that you would enjoy Black Sonata. I think that that's the thing that makes it really fun, is that it kind of gamifies something that is already enjoyable if you like puzzles. So think those logic puzzles where you get clues about people and you're trying to figure out, okay, who is the person who likes this kind of ice cream and who's the person, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Black Sonata is a better gamey version of that.
Yes. Highlights on steroids.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great evolution of that. That's a good way to put it. But definitely, I was glad to see it on your list because I had totally forgotten about it. And yeah, it's a fabulous game. So we're at my number 5, which, this one is one of my favorites. Most people who start to play this game get pretty addicted to it. And I finally got my own board. It's Crokinole.
Ooh, I've never played that. I haven't played a lot of the games on your list, but they all look really good, so I'll have to.
Crokinole is an incredible game. And it's so simple, yet there's so much to it. So it's you can play it 2 or 4 player. Primarily, it's a 2-player game. And what you're doing with it is you have your own discs and you're trying to get them into the center. And there's some rules about if another player's disc is out there, you have to knock their disc first. And there's just some strategy there where you can keep maybe a disc over here that's really hard to get to because there's also posts on the board. make it really hard for somebody to get to flick their disc over to the right place or shoot their disc over to the right place. So it's an absolutely incredible game. Not all Crokinole boards are created equal. You really want a super smooth board. There's Crokinole championships that happen in Canada, and I actually went through on a road trip with Daryl Andrews back when we were working at Maple Games together. We went through where they have this huge championship and make these boards. It's just a lifestyle up there. And they dedicate all this time making these boards and making them super smooth, and it's amazing. Watching the championships, it's basically like they just keep hitting the hole-in-one until somebody gets in the way or gets out or something happens. And it's an incredible thing. So Crokinole is addictive and just super fun. And when I went to Sweden to visit some board gamers, they all have these Crokinole boards. They're on their wall as like decoration. Like this is just what they do. And they have these bags. They like to be outside a lot. It's kind of promoted in Sweden to spend time outdoors. And they have these bags, so they'll just take it off the wall, put it in their bag, carry it to a picnic.
That's so practical.
It's incredible. It's a huge
Why don't
board.
we do that? It's a great idea.
And yet, yes. To hang it on the wall if you don't have room for it, because they're in tiny apartments in Sweden, and not everyone, obviously, but the people I visited, and they just hung it on the wall. So it's, not having room for it isn't really an excuse. And so now I have a bag and my maple leaf Crokinole board, and it's I love it. I love it so much, and my kids love it. And 4-player, you just do it as teams. So you're going around and you have to shoot, so you just go around every other person on the table. So that goes well as well. But that
sounds awesome.
It's so addicting. You don't want to stop when you're playing this game. It's really, really good. So
that sounds really good, for real.
So the Mayday just did a Kickstarter. It sounds like Gator Dave got one. And they're really good entry level. I knew I was going to be playing Crokinole forever. I knew that if I went in for a Mayday one, I was going to want to upgrade. So I just figured I'd bite the bullet. And I went with the company that's up in Canada and went for that. So Tracy Boards, that's right. Their last name is Tracy. And it's a family affair up there, which is super cool because he has kids and he has them just like working on it as well. So it's pretty cool. So number 5, Crokinole. I'm sure everybody's heard of that. So your number 4.
Yes. So here's where I'm pushing a little bit more into that. Are we trending towards heavy games territory? But not yet, because this showed up in my search for 2 and under, so I know that it's lower than that. Ottoman Sunset. So Ottoman Sunset is a victory point game. It's like a nice little solo Stasis Siege. Mm-hmm. And I like this game a lot because it's just interesting. You're doing the Great War, the Turkish Empire is under attack. You're doing everything that you can to kind of keep things afloat. You're drawing these cards, and then you're making decisions that ultimately rely on a die roll, but you still have to decide what to do, and you learn some history while you're at it. And so, if you want kind of an intro-level heavy game, then I think that Ottoman Sunset is a really good one. And I also think that if you are playing, heavy games, but you want something that is a faster, lighter experience for an evening, then Ottoman Sunset is a fine choice for that.
Yeah, that fills a lot of, what you're looking for in a light game. So I have not played Ottoman Sunset, so I don't know this one, but it seemed really, really intriguing when I was looking it up.
Yeah, I mean, if you played a States of Siege game, you pretty much know how it feels. If you like that theme, I think I particularly like the theme of Ottoman Sunset, so for me, that's one that I like a lot. If you really hate rolling dice, then you might get frustrated with it, but I kind of feel like if you're already playing war games,
you should be used to that. Yeah, you should.
And so for me, that's not necessarily an issue, especially because that historical theme comes through so strong. I think this one might be getting a reprint from Victory Point. I know they've been revamping some of the collection. So I'm hoping this is on I feel like I read it somewhere, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah, and it's an older one. It's not one that I've really seen around. So reprint might help push that because I have not seen this one. I've heard it talked about a few times, but not to the level where I thought to go pick it up or take a look at it. And, terrible die roller, but it doesn't mean I don't like playing them. Even though they're going to annihilate me. I need to, like, practice my die rolls. So, we'll see.
Can you practice them?
No. They don't listen to me.
Put them in jail.
Whatsoever. You know what I've learned? The last game I played with dice was that pinball arcade game. And what I learned with that was don't ask for anything. Don't. I would just clear my mind. I would not even look for what I wanted on the board so that there was no wishing whatsoever in my head. And then they seemed to not be able to conspire against me. Because usually I'll be sitting there being like, oh, I really want this to happen. And nope, that's just not going to be it. So, yeah, I learned not to do that. Absolutely. So that helps me. Yeah, they tend to conspire against me. But so is this one that you would play with your kids in school at all, or is it?
No, this is solo.
Is it solo?
That's why it's not as widely known.
Yeah,
so
that's probably.
A lot of my, my most beloved games are games that I play by myself because that's how they get to the table.
Yeah.
So if you want to try, a solo historical game, one of these is a good intro level one because they're just not that hard to learn. And, if you kind of dig it, then you can always get something that's like a chunkier version of this. Or if you like this one, then there's other States of Siege games that you can try. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
there's a lot
I think there is, even with the war games, there's this stigma of it's so difficult or hard to understand. The rules are pretty simple. Like, certain things are it's almost like 18xx in a way. I feel like there's your core rules, and then there's things that are going to take you in different directions with different implementations in the genre, but they're pretty much the same how they're going to function. So once you really get a handle on that, just like with your MacGuffins in 18xx, there's just going to be certain things that are different that you have to get used to. So whether you're trying out a solo game of Ottoman Sunset or maybe Maria, I think is a really good intro to that. Then, yeah, you're moving into it. So my number 4, very different from Ottoman Sunset, is Carcassonne Star Wars. So this one I feel a little bit bad putting on the list because it's impossible to get in North America. Sorry, everybody. You're going to have to travel if you want to pick it up, so it's not going to be something you can get easily or pay a heck of a lot of money. I think I saw a copy for $180 on BGG.
No.
It's not worth that. Don't do that. But Carcassonne Star Wars, and with its expansion, to me, is just the only way I want to play Carcassonne anymore. But it's a battle. It's basically adding a war game to Carcassonne. So, truly, have you played it yet, Liz?
No, I never played it. I mean, I played Carcassonne, but I've never played Star Wars Carcassonne.
So it's Carcassonne, but now you're fighting. And of course, you're in space because it's Star Wars. So you're laying out these asteroid belts and these planets. And as the planets come out, you have the choice to put one of your people on it. So you can go, and you could go into an asteroid belt to so it's very similar to Carcassonne in that, you decide if you're going to place. If you get into completing an area, whether it's the asteroid belt or a planet or what have you, you can fight somebody who's already on the planet, and then you battle. And you roll dice for the fighting and you see what happens. But you might have, in the expansion, you can add like a lightsaber or something else. Like you have a bigger meeple, and so you have that one. And they have different rules as far as what happens when you fight, whether you get an extra dice or you get to add something or what have you. So little rule changers for the battles, and you fight over the planets, and then somebody could come back and fight you. And so, it's kind of this ever-changing battle going on in your Star Wars universe that you're creating with your tile lays. And then you score at the end, and it's a blast. So for me, it really ups Carcassonne, which, I always enjoyed playing. I like the newer one, the Carcassonne Safari. I enjoyed playing when it was in prototype, but I'm sure it's pretty much the same. So I'm not against, playing some of the different Carcassonnes, but this one is by far my favorite. So much so that like when I went overseas for my first Essen, I think I picked up like 4 copies of it. Some of them not in English because I was so nervous I wasn't going to get one at Essen that like beforehand I went to all these game shops and just kept buying it because I knew when I got home people would be like, I want a copy and like pay me back. So that was a huge amount of my like what I brought back with me was Carcassonne Star Wars. But yeah, something with the Star Wars rights, they won't allow them to print it here. I think Disney has it and they won't let them have it here. So
it's such a bummer. How rude.
Yep, it is a bummer, but there's all these bootleg copies. Anybody who has one's usually like, and this again, my heavy gamer friends, this is the version they're like, oh yeah, let's play that. And it's hard to find, and so it kind of has that, niche of like, oh, let's, if we have it here, let's get it to the table. But right, super fun for the kids too. Yep. So Carcassonne Star Wars.
Awesome.
So your number 3.
Yeah, so this is a really old school one. It's getting harder to find, but it's also a tile. It's limes. So a lot of people pronounce it as limes, but it's limes because it's a Roman word for boundary markers. Mm-hmm. But basically, it is a tiling game that really I played solo, but it could be played by up to 100 people, I guess, if you had enough copies of this.
That's what I saw, right? It comes as a 2-player.
Yeah.
Because 2 decks.
If you have 2 sets, then because basically each card has a number assigned to it. So when you play by yourself, you can just draw cards and play. But, if you are playing with another person, then everybody draws the same card numbers at the same time and chooses where to place them. So basically you're trying to lay everything out in a way that's going to be the most beneficial to you and get you the highest score. So maybe you want to do grain fields for farmers, or, you want to put houses on lakes to get fisherman points, or you want to, you're putting these little meeples out on the board and also, and like giving them kind of little jobs. So you could be like, oh, let me put a bunch of fields together and make this one a farmer. Let me, use a watchtower and try to score that way. And so there's a bunch of different spatial stuff that you can do, and you have to choose how to allot your meeples. Mm-hmm. And it's just fun every time. It's always kind of an interesting little challenge. Each game comes out a little different. And it's just one I really like on kind of a rainy afternoon,
Yes.
But it's light. It's easy to learn.
Yeah. Not a lot of rules overhead. Can lead to some really good experiences, good choices in the game to make. So, and Dan says game number 2 on this list that I've been mispronouncing for years. Don't worry, we're all in the same boat. We all love those games. It's like being, book learning, right? Like when you're self-taught, you just read it. It looks like limes. Why would it not be limes? Oh, it's limes. All right, fine.
Yeah, there's no reason any normal person would know that information.
No. Yeah, that and Medici.
Yeah. But like, you look at the cover and you're like, why isn't there fruit on it? Because it really does look like lime.
Yes. And I think there's a card game that's limes too. So if you say limes, people are going to probably think you're talking about that, not limes. Yeah. So, yep, it's how it is. So that's, great game. And again, one that nobody really talks about. And yet if that came out, I'd be like, yeah, let's play that. Like, because you have those 2 decks and you just play. But yeah, you're right. You could just get a bunch of copies and play with as many people as you want.
And it's not so bad to teach because, okay, you get a bad score the first time. You just turn around and be like, oh, I'll do better next time,
Yes, and that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. Having short games like this, having those lighter games where you finish saying like, oh, I see all this strategy and I want to do that again. That's kind of what I was thinking about for myself anyway, like what I would say heavy gamers would love in a light game is something where it gives you that puzzle or that challenge to want to go at it from a different direction and play it again. So, and I'll apologize to, sorry, Kabuki Kid, talking up games you can't get. Some of these you can, though, so...
Well, I bought this, I actually found a new and shrink copy for like $30.
Yeah. I feel like this one's still gettable. I don't think it's sold out everywhere.
I'm looking at Board Game Geek right now, so most of the copies right now are in Europe. Yeah. But if you just kind of wait, they'll pop up. They always do.
Yep.
With this one.
Yeah, put your camel search on it. You'll find it. It'll come up eventually. All right. So my number 3 is one most of the people at Heavy Cardboard have heard about, and that is QE. So originally by Gavin Birnbaum, and Gavin's an incredible, incredible person and designer. He designs these wood board games. And he came up with QE, which what players are doing is they're deciding how much money they're going to print. They're, money printers, and for each country, they're going to print a certain amount of money. And you get more points the more money you print. So it seems logical to just go all in and print as much money as you can, except at the end of the game, you tally how much money everybody has printed, and the person who printed the most goes kaput. They don't score at all. So it's a game of hedging and pushing and watching what other players are doing and hiding and manipulating, and it's awesome. So
it sounds like a game I'd be terrible at, but that would not stop me.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I've played this and been so bad, and then I've played it and been like, I got it. They don't know where I am. And so, yeah, quantitative easing. Bailing out, printing money. It's a timely subject. This is true. But QE is phenomenal. And Gavin he did Jam Sumo, which is another great game. It's like I almost put a couple of his other games on the list, but I thought this was a good placeholder for any of the Gavin Birnbaum games. If you look him up, he makes these in his shed, so they're limited copies. And funny story, QE was sold out. I wanted the QE version, and I bought everything he had. Now, mind you, to Edward's chagrin, I bought everything he had. And these are wood heavy games in these like square boxes.
You mean they were heavy wood and not heavy cardboard?
Yes. I bought everything he had while we were at UKGE. It'd be easy to get that home, right? It's not,
it is if you have a properly dutiful boyfriend.
So I had this huge box of wooden games. No problem. Why is this the issue? It's
little wheels on it.
It's like $300 worth of games and like 50 pounds. And Edward's like, how am I getting this home? How are we getting this home? And so it ended up a really good friend who held on to them, who's a publisher over there, and he held on to them for a while, I think until Essen the next year or something, and then we had a pallet that was being shipped back, and we took it and got it shipped back from there. So these $300 worth of games probably cost me more like $400, but he creates amazing games. Yes, that's why I keep them around. That and tall shelves that I can't reach. So yeah, I have all these games, but Jam Sumo is another one I super love. And I think it's very similar to Dice Kung Fu, if you've ever played that one, but or Kung Fu Dice, I think it's called. You're trying to push other players' dice off the board and into this hole by like flicking them off and stuff, and it's super, super fun. So he creates some really strategic games and then some just like dexterity games. He has ones about bananas and monkeys, but I highly recommend checking them out because yeah, he's a great guy. And then Board Game Tables actually reprinted it. So there's the QE version with Board Game Tables. But I'll tell you, Gavin's is phenomenal. I highly, highly like my wood version of the game. But yeah, it's definitely one of those games that's player dependent. But it can be a blast to play. And we've had some really good experiences with it. So yeah, QE and stuff by Gavin. Great light games. Like it's its whole little genre. So highly recommend. So that's number 3. Yorick has played Jam Sumo as well. Yeah, it's hard to beat games like that. Like they're so simple, and yet adults will have a lot of fun with it. I have to say that the game that didn't make my list but almost did was Coconuts.
Oh, the game is hilarious.
Right? And at the end of the
one
night...
with the monkeys, right?
Yes, it's the monkeys, and you
yeah.
have these little round coconuts. They don't look like coconuts, but
No, they look like little poops, to be
they
honest.
look like poo. It seems like your monkey's throwing poo, but you're trying to build your pyramid, and you're knocking down other people's, and if you get their cup, you get it into the cup, you get the cup, but then you can knock down other people's, but then that means you're not getting a cup. And so you have to make these choices and shoot these, and they're playing this with a bunch of heavy gamers at the end of the night, like playing, oh, what did we play? Maria. We played Maria, and then we came over and played Coconuts. It's kind of hilarious, and yeah. And
have you played Lupin Louie?
Yes, Lupin Louie is another.
It's kind of in that same.
It is.
Like, it scratches the same itch for me.
Yes. And you have to, I wish people could understand. So if you picture me like 5 years ago, and I'm going to like my first gathering of friends, and these are gamers that I knew from where I lived and stuff, but they're people who have 1,300 plays of 18xx. These are people, war gamers, high frontier experts. These are the gamers on BGG that everybody sees and is like, whoa, right? And so I'm showing up and I'm like, hi guys, you know, because they're all traveling up to New York State from Massachusetts. And so they're my local crew, but I'm like, hi. And these are the games they're playing late at night. And so it's funny to me, and I get a little defensive of this part of, you know, the people that are considered part of these, you know, heavy gamers, because people will be like, oh, they're not welcoming. And I'm like, are you kidding me? They're the ones playing Coconuts at midnight in the ballroom. They're not judging you. Like, they're like, you want to play Riff Raff? Like, let's knock a ship down. they're some of like the best guys ever. So yeah, and that's the thing is playing these games and introing these games before you do something like 18xx, and you see them lose terrible. Like they're like trying to hit their monkey, and they're like, I can't. I can't do it. Their coconuts are going to the other side of the room. And it's like that icebreaker where everybody's on the same level. Like, what are you going to do? You're trying to shoot this tiny little rubber ball across the table. Yeah. So, and one of the funniest things was, like, I was playing with somebody, and we were the last two in the game, and people were hanging around. These heavy gamers are hanging around to watch who'd win. Like, they're like, I just have to see this. This is hilarious. Look at, because I get serious. Like, I'm like, I'm going to get you. And it was back and forth for like an hour, and nobody would go to bed. They were like, we're going to see how this goes down with the coconuts. So, yeah.
But, I mean, I sort of feel like being a gamer means that you have to be able to laugh at yourself and at, like, stupid things that you do or stupid things that happen. And any game that's going to help you with that,
yes,
I'm in, you know?
Yeah. I do, and I feel like, you know, I talk about a lot, like, what games will ramp up to playing some of these heavier games. You know, what game can you use, especially with my kids? Like, maybe I use a hobby game to introduce hate drafting. Legit, they have games that are about hate drafting solely. And so you're teaching things in this like microcosm of like, okay, you've learned all these things, now let's put it together. And that's super important to me because I want people to feel like they can access these heavier games and not feel like there's some barrier there because they don't feel like they understand all the concepts. And when you're playing these heavier games, like, you know, I'll play with people who are super experienced and they mess up on their route and they're like, yeah, that's not going to work out. Like, I guess I'm dumping this company. Like, I'll start something else.
You know, gaming is kind of like a language, you know, like you learn some of the building blocks before you can do a full on, like, I don't know, research paper or something, right? But like, let's start with making a sentence. Let's start with some words we like. And I feel like all the different mechanisms you can learn in a number of simpler games, you know, the more games you play, the better you get at games because they share so much. Yeah. And so, you know, I think that lighter games as a way to expose yourself to a lot of different ways to play and different mechanisms and get people comfortable. You know, everybody should be doing that all the time because it's just fun. Like, and it makes people feel more comfortable.
It does. And to see those mistakes, and that's, again, I'll say, you know, I feel like I'm a broken record, but with wargaming and 18xx, don't be afraid to play it and die horribly. Like, make mistakes and, you know, say, hey, I'm going to try this route, and then realize, oh, that was a really bad idea. You learn from that. And that's that's how I've learned to go into 18xx, especially playing with who I'm playing with. My chances of winning against them are not great. I'm not playing it to win, but neither are they. They're playing it to see what happens when I build this really less desirable route from this to this. Like, can I still win? Can I make something of this company? At this point in their gameplays, they want to just see what you can do, right? And so try looking at from a different perspective of not just, oh, I want to play 18xx to win 18xx. Play it to what can I learn from this game of 18xx? What does it teach me?
Well, if the only thing that's fun about a game is winning, then it wasn't a very good game.
No. So true. There are so many games I've played where I win off the bat and I don't want to play again. Because I'm like, that was too
great,
easy.
I won. Like, woo.
Yeah.
That's not really the point. Like, the point is to have a good gaming experience, and that
Did I learn something? Did I play it and feel immersed in a theme? Did I play it and, just feel like this taught me something, and I really had to either, not struggle in a way of just like, oh, I'm mathing it out, but struggle in strategy, and do I end, and we've said this throughout this list, do I end the game and say, oh, I can't wait to play that again and try something else? So... if you look at it from that perspective, these things become much less daunting, right? A really good friend of mine, and he won't mind that I share this about him, but Derek, he actually made my logo. He's a really a great graphic designer as well. But when he first started gaming about the same time that I did, in our game group, he always lost. It was just known. If Derek played a game, he was coming in last. And his thing was he wanted to try things. He didn't want to just stick with one thing. He would see all the shinies in the game, and he's like, well, I want to try building this. That's boring. I want to build this now. I want to build this now. So he wouldn't go with a strategy that was going to build up to a win.
Right.
But he got to really experience the game in that play. And that's what he wanted out of it. And he was happy with that. It also... look at it this way, or something I try to remember, it made everybody else at the table more comfortable because jumping into a game with Derek, you knew you weren't going to come in last. So you were like, well, Derek's playing, so I'm in. He's last.
See, for me, like, the main things I want in a game are I want to be interested the entire time.
Yeah.
And I want to feel a little bit disappointed when it's over. Does that make sense? Like, that's the real marker of a good game, no matter how long it is. If it's like 2 minutes, 2 hours, a day, you have to like it the whole way through. Yeah. Also, whoever mentioned For Sale in these comments, that is
excellent choice. That is
choice.
True. Yeah, I saw that too.
No Thanks.
Yeah, No Thanks almost ended up on my list as well. That was one that was on there for a little bit. No Thanks, and but No Thanks, I don't know. It doesn't come out as much. Just doesn't.
No, it comes a lot in my game group, but I think that's just because it's just one of the small games that's always in somebody's bag.
Yeah. It's easy to keep with you, yeah. Las Vegas is another one, yep.
I've never played that one, and I would love to.
It is, and you're dice rolling, but placement, and then you have to think about, so there's a lot of strategy in it. So yeah, Las Vegas is another super good, and I'm sure that didn't come up in my search, but I can't imagine that's over 2.0. But
it's rated at 4. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Did you see my face? You totally got me for a minute there. I was like, what? Something happened with the algorithm.
Well, okay. So as we're going into number 2, which I'm supposed to do, so my number 2 is my big cheat, but I justify this because, frankly, the algorithm on Board Game Geek is just people voting.
And they add things in. So.
Right. I'm just saying. So my number 2 is actually a 2.13. And it's a little higher than the others.
You're pushing it. You didn't even ask me about that. You asked me about one that was 2.2, and I was like, no. We had the best conversation creating this list. Like, I was laughing with Edward because I would be like, she's writing again and asking this. And I'm like, no, you can't have it. So, so you're number 2.
I wanted to put, like, Flashpoint Fire Rescue on here, but it's 2.21.
Yes.
And, like, I put Undaunted Normandy on here. That's also a 2.21.
No.
Baseball Highlights, 2.21. That's apparently a weight I really like. But...
Play the lottery, 2.21.
So my number 2 at a 2.13, but I dispute that, is Maquis.
Yes.
So Maquis is a solo worker placement game. It is tiny. It is also from Side Room Games. It's the same publisher as Black Sonata. They both started their lives as successful solo print and plays on Board Game Geek.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is even print and play, right? Yeah.
How they have grown.
Yeah.
So Maquis is delightful. It is all about trying to get stuff done as part of the French Revolution in Nazi-occupied France. And so, like, you are trying to sneak out and send your workers to places to get resources, get money, complete missions. And on the way home, you could get blocked by the cops.
Yep.
And, you know, if you decide to shoot a cop on the way home, you either give up a weapon, which is very expensive, and you don't want to really do that, but it's that or go to jail and lose a worker. Or, you know, if you decide to take out a normal police officer on the way home, then they'll put a soldier in. So, you know, what'll happen is that, you know, you end up having to make these nasty choices with really limited resources. But it's still just a worker placement game. You got to think about who's going to patrol where or what could happen, map out your routes, and just hope.
So I haven't played this. The theme sounds tremendous to me. I mean, you get to blow up railroads. You're printing, like, pamphlets and stuff, too, right? Yeah. All things to try to take down the Nazis, right? So it sounds tremendous. Does the theme really bleed into it as you're playing?
I think that the fact that the officers go on patrol at the end of your turn is what does it.
Okay.
Because you're absolutely terrified that the card that you're going to draw is going to block off one of your workers' returns home. And so there are different things you can do. So there are safe houses, and you can even build an extra safe house in one of the locations in town once you get the resources for that, if that's one of the things you decide to do with your very limited time in the game.
Yeah.
You know, I actually have a playthrough up from when it was on Kickstarter. I don't do very many Kickstarter previews, but this one was well worth the time. It was awesome. But I made it. I'll spoil it for you. It's fine. It's worth watching anyway. But, like, I made it all the way to the end. I thought I was going to make it, and then I just drew, like, the one wrong patrol card, and, like, everything went to hell.
But that makes you want to play it again, right? Like, yeah, this is the thing where you're like, oh, all right, I got to do that again.
Even the smartest planning can go wrong, but smart planning.
Thematic.
So it's really, really enjoyable. And the missions that you can adjust the difficulty level by picking different missions.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot that is in that one tiny little box, and because it's so small, I mean, if you're not good at the game, it just means you'll lose faster, so you can set up faster and then try again.
Right.
And so I'm a big fan of this one. I really like it. It's one of my absolute favorite little just small box solo games, and I think that I personally do not think that it's very heavy at all. I think anybody could learn it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was really interested in this one when I saw it on your list because I hadn't heard of it. I was checking the publisher, saw it was self-published, print and play, all of that. And just, I love supporting small publishers like that, people who really put themselves out there. And from reading some of the comments on it, it really did sound like people were really enjoying this, and this was a really clever design and an interesting way to go about the theme. This theme in board games is not always my favorite, like with Secret Hitler, that type of game. So I like the idea that you're going after them, and it feels, at least the way that they approach the theme in the game as well. So
yeah, I like solo games for that reason. You know, you can choose what role you're going to be in the whole time, and you don't have to switch off and play the side you don't want to play.
Right.
Like, there are definitely countries and roles and stuff that I don't like in war games, and so I will avoid them. This is a good way.
Yeah, yeah, it seems well done. So super interesting one. I hope more people take a look at it. And you said when did they have their Kickstarter?
Oh God, this was a while ago. But if you go to the Side Room Games website, so Dustin Culbertson at Side Room Games has a good eye for picking up these little solo print and plays. Let's see what's on sale right now. I will just Google it because I have a computer. The other thing that Side Room Games does that's quite good is Orchard, which is also I thought about for this list.
Okay.
So it's like a teeny quick, like a 9-card game.
Yeah.
Tiny, tiny, tiny. And lots of fun, just fast. Maquis is currently on sale on the Side Room site for $25. Oh, it's out of stock. But there's an app. Okay. And they're planning a second print run for the end of 2020. So there you go. I think the app rules are a bit different because it doesn't feel like playing regular Maquis, so I gave up on the app pretty quick. But yeah, Maquis is reprinting at the end of this year. So it'll be back. Yeah,
that's not long. We're already almost into September, crazy enough. So.
It's a P&P, so.
Yeah, very, very cool. And what was the side room games you said?
Side room games, yeah.
So Fel, side room games. Yeah. Imhotep. Oh, Imhotep almost made it on my list as well because that's low enough. Somebody mentioned. Oh, really?
Well, my whole experience is skewed because I'm such a solo gamer.
True.
I have to meet people who will expose me to multiplayer games because solo stuff I can handle myself. But
right. Yeah, and Conspiracy, I finally get a copy of Conspiracy that I have. That's a much older game. That's a really good one too. But I didn't see Conspiracy come up. I should have checked that one for weight. I'm not sure how it's rated for that one. But yeah, those are all great games. Yeah, good choices, guys. Karuba, that's another good one that people are mentioning. So yeah, those are great. So mine, this is your solo. With kind of a Nazi theme in it, and my next game is pretty mean. There's been just a little bit. I've seen in this game some really, like, the experience that I've had in a board game that made me actually like, I can't believe that just happened. So it kind of had to make my list, but I will preface it. This is a mean game. It's diplomacy level, and that is Intrigue.
This is not something that would have been in my...
Oh, yes, it's so good. So it's basically the game of nepotism. What you're doing is you have this vast estate, and you have these louses for relatives, and you don't want them to work on your estate because they're terrible. So you're going to bribe your competitors to take your certain people, family members, into their estate. But so are others. And so you have these symbols that represent your people, and those match symbols that everyone else has, right? So if you decide in a round to say, I'm going to put this one in yours, but somebody else puts the same symbol in, then it has to come up to the person in that estate deciding between them. And it can get really cutthroat. The one that doesn't get the space, that gets voted off, goes to the island in the middle and makes no money. The other ones at the end of your turn will make you money that comes back to your estate. So you're looking for spots that are like $100,000, $10,000, $5,000. Each spot that the job they get makes a certain amount of money. So you pick the spot and you pick the person and you try to get your person in there. But the time the experience I had in playing this at a game day, Edward bribed Shrey, a member of our game group. He's the sweetest person. So nice. Shrey is.
Is he?
Well, I thought so.
Okay.
$90,000. He paid him for a $40,000 spot. Somebody else bribed him with I forget, $40,000, less than half. And he went with the other person and sent Edward's. You get to keep the money. So he got to keep the 90 and he sent it to the island. And I've never, tears welled up. And Edward, at games, his eyes were glassy. It was
playing in the background.
And I'm I couldn't look at Shrey. I was like, I was like, oh. Did that just happen? And Shrey's like, yeah, because I'm going to do this thing. And I was like, this is bad. This is so bad. And it was round 3. It was so early. For the rest of the game, Edward's like, I don't care, whatever you paid, you're going down. It's like that game where the rest of the game, no matter what, and Shrey would be like, well, I'm offering you a good deal. And Edward would be like, are you? He was just, come on.
Is everybody friends again at this point?
They're fine. They really did. Everybody's okay. Even Shrey at the end of it was like, that was a mistake.
Because look at the story that we're still all hearing and telling and enjoying. It was not a mistake. It was a great decision.
It was epic.
Games as narrative.
But I've never, when the air gets sucked out of a room, it was that type of moment. Everyone was just like what? You did what? It was, yep. And, I had that moment. Somebody came after me early in that game, another time we played, and I was like, it's all right. It's all right.
You Jess. Of Omar Little from The Wire. Come at the king, you best not miss.
Yes. Oh, oof. So it is a game that will create stories for years to come, because things like that will happen. And there's another game that's similar called Succession, and I actually decided to decide between the two. But for me, Intrigue is created that moment. I couldn't not put it on the list just because of that. Succession is a little similar, and it isn't as mean. So in Succession, you're kind of bribing to get yourself to be the, greatest. What do you call it? Like you're going for the crown to be their secret holder, and you're trying to push yourself up in this and give yourself prestige. So similar, and if you're looking for something less cutthroat, I would recommend Succession, but Intrigue is an experience. It will create memories, and mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I've never met Trey, but now if I do, I'll be like, oh, are you the one?
Yeah. He'll die too. He'll be like, oh yeah, I did that. That was
what came over me.
Yeah, no, I mean literally afterwards he's like, even I felt bad. Like I feel dirty. Like that was not okay. I do feel bad now. I thought it was a good move, and then I was like, oh, that was dirty. It was like Junta's another one. I almost thought Junta's not low enough to be considered a late game, or rated simple enough, but that's another one. Huge swings and backstabbing, and you're like, oh wow, you did that. So Intrigue. There is a heavy cardboard playthrough of it, and it was fun. A lot of those Glory to Romes are from that from that playthrough. So, yep, that's my number 2.
That's awesome.
So we have made it to number 1. And we're going to start with you. So, what do you got? What's your favorite?
So, my number 1, you know what? It's a pocket game. It's cheap. It's easy to get. I'm pretty sure you can print and play it if you can't find a copy for some reason. And it's from Buttonshine. It's Sprawlopolis, the tiniest game that sets my brain on fire.
Fair.
So Sprawlopolis is a cooperative game. I think up to 4 people can play it. I normally play it solo or with like just one other person. But you're basically trying to build this city according to score conditions. So it's one of those 18-card challenge games where on the back of each of the cards, there's a scoring condition. And on the front of each card, there's like a little grid that's part of a city. So each game you draw, a couple scoring cards, you see what they are, and then you try to get the highest score that you can with the remainder cards. Some of the scoring conditions are not very compatible. Like there's some that are like green city, and then if you get that with like industrial city, you're like, oh no, that's not gonna go so hot.
No overlap, that's
part of the hilarity. But it's just such a fun game because you have to pay attention to so much. It's easy to play. Like the rules are super easy. It's like, oh, you have 2 cards, put down a card. That's not the problem. The problem is what is the right decision to make here, and like where do you put everything? Mm-hmm. And it is so frustrating and difficult, and everything that you could possibly want from a game this size. It's amazing, like how much they packed in to 18 cards that I can put in my back pocket.
Yes. Yeah, Buttonshine is a great company. That's another one that I feel like opens up a whole genre of light games. Circle the Wagons is another great one from them. They have Tussie Mussy, which I really enjoyed. Great images on those, and really, really fun. And just great people behind the games, which I really, really love. I cannot tell y'all, if you want to support a company like Buttonshine, Gavin, everybody there's so many people in the industry that are absolutely great. But Buttonshine, really, really great folks. They bring their kids to their booth, and their kids they'll do the sales pitch. Like they'll just be like, all right, so let's play a game. Like their daughter does demos, and Absolutely, just a great group of folks. So highly recommend. And like you said, I mean, it fits in a little wallety thing in your pocket.
It's friendly on the wallet and in the wallet. Like,
yes.
It's amazing.
So much. I forget what their deal was, but I bought like all of their games again, even though I had several of them, and they'd even sent me some to like, test and to, talk about. So I had a bunch, but I was like, I'll use these as gifts. Like, these are just a fantastic game to give somebody or put in a stocking or, what have you. Because again, low rules overhead, but tons of strategy. So they're really good about picking. You mentioned before about, like just picking these great games to make and get out there. They're really, really good. Oh, they have a bundle on Kickstarter right now. I didn't notice that.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, highly recommend that. You can't really go wrong with their games. I've never played a game of theirs that I didn't enjoy.
I've had some that I liked more or less. For me, like Sprawlopolis is top end. Like Sprawlopolis is a game that I put in the great games generally category.
Yeah.
But I've never played a game that was bad.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying.
At least fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely check them out. Glad they have a Kickstarter going on right now because they're really, really great folks. And I know they rely a lot on conventions to sell a lot of their games. So, yeah, if you can support the Kickstarter or you're interested in any of them, definitely go take a look because I'm sure they could use it, given that there are not conventions right now for them to be showing these off to people. And I think it's harder when you're showing off tiny games like that to really get the traction because people will think they're too light. Like, they have definitely a niche with these strategy games that are tiny. So, and they're saying Palm Island is a tricky little game. So I think, it's good for people to realize that these aren't games to just overlook. They have some really great gameplay in these tiny little clever games that they've come up with. So, yeah, great number one. So my number one, probably not a super big surprise to people who follow me, and pretty thematic to our gorgeous number one graphic there, but it is Dinosaur Table Battles.
I want to play that so bad.
So yeah, this is one I bought immediately. As soon as it was available to order, I picked up. Liz will be back in a second. We're just pulling her image back up. But as soon as this was available to order, I wanted it. Well,
do you listen to the Tom and Mary podcast?
Yes, sometimes.
Dinosaurs,
all
everybody. That's all I know. Dinosaurs, everybody.
Dinosaurs, everybody. Yeah, they are such a great couple, and what they're doing in the industry is so, so good. So, really, really enjoy their stuff. And I totally just right away wanted to get this game. So as soon as I could, I got it from them. And we're hearing background noises of dinosaurs, apparently. So, yeah. We'll bring that graphic up and not touch it again.
A mental image of
there we go. Look at all the dinosaurs.
From Jurassic Park.
So Dinosaur Table Battles actually doesn't have a rating yet for weight, but I went by what Table Battles had because it's basically the same game, just switched in with the theme of dinosaurs. So going with that, that's basically the weight that I gave it. And again, there's a playthrough of this one because I picked it up so early, and it's just a blast. Like, have you ever played Table Battles?
No.
Okay.
What I'm wondering is this light enough that you could teach this to somebody who doesn't game very much?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, maybe I might need this.
Yeah, I would.
I love dinosaurs.
Yeah,
my boyfriend loves dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love dinosaurs?
It's one that you just want to keep playing. So in talking to Tom about this, there are dinosaurs. This is what I'll warn you with about this game. There are dinosaurs that are overpowered, but you're drafting. You're gonna get a feel for that. And when I say overpowered, they have certain really powerful aspects to them. Thematically, they would. And now what you need to do is, if there's this really strong dinosaur that your competitor has coming after you, figure out how to kill it. Like, you've got to go after that one then and focus on taking that dinosaur out. And so then you're attacking and they have to flip over cards and they don't have that dinosaur anymore once it gets to a certain point. And when either there's sticks that go back and forth, like you have to spend sticks if they win, and that's the entire game. So you either run out of sticks or you run out of dinosaurs, and that's it. And so it's really simple as far as rules overhead, what you're doing. But the strategy in it, especially with the fact that you're drafting those, that's going to come into a lot of play. And there's starter decks that you can use. So you can use, starter ones to get started, because the drafting will come with time and you'll start to realize what's more powerful than others. But just using the starters to begin with, and, being two-player, there's not that... I feel like teaching something two-player can be an easier entry as well.
Yeah.
Because it's one-on-one. So that's how you do this game. And it's so good. It's just clever, and I love the way it works together, and I love the theme. So yeah, unapologetic dinosaur bias here as well.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No. I was so excited he was adding the dinosaur theme to this. Just so excited. Now, if we could get a dinosaur battle lines, that would be really good as well. Battle lines is a really good game as well. I mean, there's so many games. I that
for this list.
Yeah, see, there were so many games. And that's what I have to say as a caveat at the end of this, is that this is just what made the list today. And my top lists, I don't know about you, Liz, but my top lists change all the time.
Yeah, they're very arbitrary. Mage Knight is my favorite game. Other than that, we could do whatever. Ginkopolis
is my favorite game. Everything else, it's going to be up and down. It depends on my most recent experiences with it. There may be a game that jumps right to the top of this list because I play it again after this and have just such an incredible time playing it. So this is based on recent plays, what I've been able to get to the table, and those things that resonate in my mind as, oh, wow, we had so much fun with that. So that's not something that necessarily is going to translate to everyone else. It's going to depend on your game group and you have to look at this list and kind of make those decisions of, which is going to be better for me? Are these things I should take a look at? But hopefully there's some things in this list that make you say, wow, I've never heard of that game. I'd like to take a look at it. And, I want to add another solo game to my table. This is something I can take a look at. And I loved getting you on here to talk about these because, again, a lot of people are home and a lot of people have that, oh, I don't want a solo game. Wouldn't be opposed to it.
What's wrong with all of you?
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
But this
what? There's a game I totally didn't realize it was this weight, and I should have mentioned it because it would have been up top. I'm such an idiot. Cards of Cthulhu. I love Cards of Cthulhu. I absolutely love it. It's another, the problem is that it's another one of those older games. DVG stopped printing it a year ago. So, I think you can still get it, but you got to look. But there's so many good games out there.
Can't stop. Kabuki Kid, that totally was one that was in my list for a little bit. 49 is also a game I've had.
I still have Lost Cities.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many. I'm in 10 days across the USA, 10 days across Europe, 10 days in Africa. There's all of those I've had a really good time with as well. But you have to make decisions. And some of those you'll probably see for me in a future list, because I started to think, well, I could put these in a list of about games with devils in them. So I'm going to put those to the side. I could put these in a list of games that are good for family gamers. So there's a ton of other games that could absolutely make it into this list. But going for heavy gamers, just trying to...
Yeah.
Yeah, and Climbers. Also, that was another one. I was like... Yeah, Climbers with a Lazy Susan.
I love a lot of midweight games, I found out, in the process of making this list. And you don't really think about it.
No.
Because they don't feel that heavy
when
you are learning them or teaching them, but...
Yep.
It's
so true. Yeah, we had so much... I loved our back and forth for
Seven Wonders. I was like, Seven Wonders is awesome. And I was like, that's a 2.33? Really?
Yes.
And
so many times. But that's why we came up with the two, because I think I looked up Shobu, which I was firm in my mind is light. A lot of strategy, but there's no rules over... The rules overhead on this, it's like a pair. Come on. It's tiny. So I was like... Pick a game that you're adamant is light. Check its rating. And that was 2.03. And I was like, okay.
All right.
I feel like we have to do 2.0 and below then. Because the way these ratings are skewed, because at first I was like, well, do we only go to 1.5? Because what's medium if this is light? Where does
Right.
medium fit? Like,
So
but
what even are games that are considered super, super heavy then? You know, it's weird because I wonder if like things that I think are really rough aren't even, how high are they? Like how high is something like Pendragon? I'm like looking at this now because I'm just curious.
I know. So when I
Okay,
did the
Pendragon is a
list,
4.34.
that's
I
really
would buy
heavy.
that.
Yeah,
I
and
would
that
buy
makes
that.
sense. But some of them you'll look at, you're like, what? So like we ended up with the Rada list doing 3.0 or higher, which was really skewing me with doing this list with you because I was like, huh? Like if that's 3 and up, what's medium? Should we have done 3.5 and up? But it is what it is. You do these lists and, you know, I feel like they're arbitrary. But I think people, I used to, when I first came into the hobby, look at these lists for ideas because I just didn't have the breadth of knowledge. There's so many games that come out a year, and gaming has been going on for so many decades that there's just so many choices. What's good? What have I missed? What didn't get the hype but is an excellent game? What do I need to know about? So I use these lists to kind of get that exposure to games I haven't heard about and maybe try something new.
I also think it's more likely now to miss games. Like the market is so full and there's so much going on all the time. And you know, I've been kind of in a funk because my job is starting up and everything's crazy. And so like I miss stuff. And then I go back and I'm like, oh man, how did I not notice that game?
Oh yeah, happens all the time. And I'm like, I didn't know Button Shy had a Kickstarter. I'm on Kickstarter all the time. How did I miss this, right? But you know, you blink in this industry, and you know, 1,000 games have come out. You're like, what happened? Where was I? So yeah, it happens. There's a lot of games. So I love like looking at other people's lists and just getting exposed to their kind of taste and what they do. But yeah, hopefully people found some new hidden gems in our list, but also in chat as people chimed in, great ideas and suggestions as well. So
yeah, I've just been skimming it for like, oh, that looks good.
I know. I'm like, that's right. Yeah, that's that one. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, hopefully people try out some of the solos. I mean, you did have a good number of solos in your list.
Yeah, I mean, it's because it's what I play.
Yeah. And that's good. I was hoping for that because I think.
But I tried to mix some stuff in for other people too. You know, not everybody is as solo dedicated as I. So
I hope people start to consider that though. Like Black Sonata would be a good place, I think, to start if you're curious about playing a solo game. Because it's, again, that theme could draw you in and it's more puzzly, so you don't just feel like you're playing a 2-player with the game. You're actually trying to figure out a puzzle more than that. So I think it would appeal to like a broader amount of people. So
yeah, and it's also just got, I mean, it's just mechanically got things that will surprise and delight you, which I think is good. It really shows you some of the weird things that solo games are capable of doing for you that other games aren't. Yeah, and I think that's, you know, that's part of the excitement.
Mm-hmm. It can be fun. You can game solo too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never been bored.
Yeah.
You know, I'm never bored. I've got something to do.
Yes. And you do a lot of puzzles too. I was watching I'm so jealous. I need to do some puzzles. I miss them.
Well, if you want to easy, so I've been doing the ones that I've just been putting on my Instagram feed. There's literally a brand called Micro Puzzles. They're 150 pieces and they're the size of a postcard. So like maybe like the size of your hand.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of sneak one on my desk at work all the time. And when I have a down moment, I'm like, because it, you know, just gives me something to focus on. That
okay, now I want to do that.
And they're maybe $8 per puzzle.
Yes. So, all right, I'm checking out Micro Puzzles. So next time our sponsor will be now. Sponsored by now. Yeah. So Micro Puzzles, check that out. So thank you all for joining us. I appreciate everybody in chat and chiming in with your thoughts as well. Liz, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, it can be found anywhere on the internet as Beyond Solitaire. So Twitter, Board Game Geek, Gmail, YouTube, Beyond Solitaire, all over the place. And if you want to see my Dice Tower reviews, anything with Liz Davidson, that's me. Yeah, you have your own little dice meeply person, which is fantastic. I do. Yeah, I have the only one that I still know of that is not human. They let me have one that was a panda. Yes, it's panda, so good. I love that. Yes, that is fabulous. Best one I've seen.
Really, really good. And you do all the things. You are blogging on your website. You do video content, and you do podcasting as well. So no matter what you're doing, folks, you can listen, read, or watch Beyond Solitaire.
That is true. And so it's my least consumed piece of media, but my podcast is actually my favorite thing I do. I love my podcast. It's been going since May, and I just interview interesting people. So this upcoming week, I have Deborah from Geek Gamers talking about solo RPG.
Nice.
So she's like the master of being your own dungeon master. And the next week, I actually talked to Dr. Robert Domain from the State Department, who's doing conflict simulation work for state. So I figured that should go up. So if you want to hear people who are a lot smarter than me, but I managed to get them on my show, that's where you go.
Those sound fantastic. Oh, that latter one. Yeah, I'm tuning in for that most definitely. But yeah, Geek Gamers too. Awesome stuff. So thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us here at Girls Stampede through Heavy Cardboard. Make sure that you like the video and subscribe. Hit that bell. I don't know why you haven't already. You should see a lot of blue on your screen over there, and make sure you get alerts about games. And maybe I will harangue Edward into actually playing a game with me for fun later, and maybe we'll actually put it up. I'm trying to force him. Can you tell this? Chime in and tell him, do that. But you'd have to get the alerts, because this would not be announced unless you're a patron. You can go to pledgehg.com to become a patron and join the conversation. Over in Slack, we talk about all the things, and a lot of these games get talked about as we're playing them, and you get kind of behind the scene knowledge of what we really think about games. So if you want to see any of that, become a patron. And that's it. Edward writing comments just to make me laugh. All right. Well, thank you all, and have a great Saturday. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Roar! We're counting down. That was